banner, then I'll know for sure that okay, yeah, I think I see it. So yeah, so I guess like recap for the viewers. I was just saying that at the past, if I'm being honest, yeah, haven't really sat down for the formal practice in the past week and a half, due to like busy work or family events. Now, obviously, part of this is excuse because if I really wanted to practice, I could have made at least 5 minutes, before sleeping every day. Um, but then the other thing that was being noted was, yeah, I mean, there's clearly, the mind will kind of slide without the formal practice. And the two most prominent things were, yeah, remembering to come back to the present less, or, catching anger a little slower. So by the time it's already kind of blown up, or by the time you can kind of feel the heat already in the body and, words are already coming out. Or yeah, and catching it a little slower. And then the other thing that we just talked about was, yeah, experimenting with what Matt and Dhammarato said in a group video chat last week, which was playing with using like a mantra like Coca-Cola to label the two parts of the breath, and then just to try and play around with stopping the mind very shortly in the gap between the end of the breath and then the start of the new one. Yeah, because sometimes if it's too long, or if I notice that if you try to do it too much or too long, or you try to prolong the gap, then the mind can kind of get restless because I can get a sense of tension from saying, yeah, let's stop the mind, and that is the tension. So when that happens, I just okay, let's just let it go. That's what I've seen. Yeah.
Right. In fact, that's one of the ways of saying that you can actually get in touch with the restlessness,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually then the source of the monologue or the thought, the verbal thought process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when you are able to lay that out and get it down to, at least for a short time,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that you can quiet the mind, that's when you begin to actually recognize, oh, look at all of that crap under that.
Right.
Look at all of that base restlessness that is built into the system,
Right.
which um, uh, that's actually a kind of discussion that I had with some friends
Mm-hmm.
about 20 years ago,
I see.
which is the question, or the point is first jhana
Mm.
enough to eliminate all the fetters,
Oh.
or is second jhana
Mm.
necessary?
Right. Right.
And at one time, I was in the branch of the second jhana is necessary and is for this particular reason. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm back on the other side of the fence of no, second jhana is not necessary. You
Oh.
can begin to see that restlessness anyway.
Right.
But
Because.
so, in that regard, the second jhana is neither sufficient nor necessary,
Mm-hmm.
but it sure is valuable. It sure is helpful.
I see. I see. I mean, you kind of took the words out of my mouth for the next question, which was, the question that I actually had was, yeah, like if I remember we said, you know, several times actually, the story of the Buddha sitting underneath the tree, he, while sitting, goes into the first jhana and he realizes that that is the way to the path. Now, then, my question was, then the higher jhanas, like the third and the fourth, where the consciousness gets untied from perception, why are those still studied, or actually still I guess still used, or like still, like, why do people still go through into those jhanas? Like, then what is the purpose of going into these kinds of states? Yes.
There is a dual answer.
Mm-hmm.
There is the liberated answer and
Mm-hmm.
the unliberated answer.
I see.
The liberated answer is that if you do become liberated by doing the first jhana,
Mm-hmm.
you will still have plenty of time on your hands, because in the old days there was no television, there was no laptops, there was no jobs at JP, and there was no coronavirus. There was nothing but that tree to sit under.
Oh, so you just might as well. I mean,
And so you got nothing else to do. You might as well enjoy the heck out of your own mind.
I see. That's what it is. Okay.
Yes, okay. So now the second jhana and the third jhana and the fourth jhana become natural.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, because they're done with non-striving, they're
Mm-hmm.
also done with wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And the wisdom is knowledge of the paticca samuppada,
Mm-hmm.
the way that the mind works. And when we begin to understand how the mind works, that means that we can begin to play with and
Mm-hmm.
begin to test and then experience and experiment with these states,
Mm-hmm.
because we know the aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's one side of the coin. That's one of the reasons. And that is, well, why not? You've got plenty of time, nothing better to do. But if you do have something better to do, like talk on the internet about Dhamma, then let's do that instead. Okay, so now the other side is the unliberated part, which are those people which was like the Buddha in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That I've heard that that's the right thing to do. And so I'm willing to put in the time and the effort and the striving and all of the time that it's going to take
Mm-hmm.
to reach those states, because I think somehow they're valuable, but I'm not sure exactly why. And so then these guys get dedicated into it,
Mm-hmm.
and that many actually will become monks and become dedicated meditators. That happens more in Asia than it does with Westerners.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really good for everyone to
Mm-hmm.
spend some time in seclusion alone, like going off for 3 months.
Right. Right.
With no with no books, no magazines, no cell phone, just go off and stay. And the only issue is mealtime.
Mealtime. Right. Right.
Okay, and so generally, someone who is doing a seclusion thing will come up and eat the food that's left over
Mm-hmm.
from the other monks, so that he does not go out on Pendabat.
I see. Wow.
Okay, and so in that regard, when you're off like that, if in fact the meditator who is doing that has thoughts of boredom,
Mm-hmm.
basically he should also sooner enough having the thought is, I'm bored because I'm not practicing properly. If I start practicing properly, the boredom will be going away, because in fact it took a little bit of proper practice to even see that I was bored. Many people get bored and restless, and then they're off down the street without an area of thought that, oh, I'm restless right now.
Right. Right.
And so when in that regard, when you have a lot of secluded time, then these states will, because you know how to bring them on, you know what they are, they know, you know the various list of qualities, and you know the examples that the Buddha gives. And so with the time and all the information about the jhanas, yeah, lickety split, there's no problem. But there is also the other kind that is a lot of work, a lot of effort, and that is that they're striving for it, but they haven't spent enough time with the Dhamma to recognize, one, what is the value of these states? Number two, actually, what are the qualities of these states? Number three, what are the examples of these states? And number four, most importantly, is what do I do, or what are the actual practices, like working with the breath, moving from the first jhana into the second jhana. Moving from the second to the third jhana is working about these feelings, these feelings of being a champion, these feelings of being a high wire artist.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, because it's interesting. I remember, before I met you and took lessons from you, it seemed to be the case. I mean, I at one point believed that, especially on, maybe I might have read it on the stream entry forums that certain things could only be fully understood when one actually attained certain states. For example, some people would say that, you have to actually reach the fourth jhana in order to understand actually that, yourself is not real, because only then would you see that your perception is not the same as your consciousness, or that the second jhana will show you that your thoughts are not you, because your thoughts will stop, like your discursive thoughts will stop, and things like that. Nowadays, my answer to that is don't need it. That's basically it. I don't try to argue or think about whether you actually what it will do. It's more like, don't need it. So,
okay. There's another kind of way of saying that issue about in the fourth jhana one can see no self. You could go so far as to say that you almost get slapped with no self, because you can see the distinctions between the consciousness and perception. But that you don't need to do that much of it, that in first jhana you can still put together that this is what's happening in the mind, even though you cannot go down to the level of doing the dissection. You can still see the coloration that has changed between what is perception, what is consciousness, and what is perception, and the thing that's going on, and we can understand that without having to get slugged with it. Now there's something else to look at, that even though the students may get slugged with this, that's what happened to the Buddha. And you'll know that after he was doing the fourth jhana, he left Ramaputta, where he was doing that with, and went with the crowd that were practicing austerities, probably under Naganakaputta. And that's when he got so thin and so weak. So he was doing both sides of the spiritual practice to the absolute edge. But going back to the point, though, if he was practicing fourth jhana and got slapped with the fact that there was no self, that still was not the end of suffering for him.
Right, exactly.
But in a way, we also understand that the first fetter is this personality view.
Right.
Right, so that's the first fetter. And so even those who practice up through fourth jhana and can see no self, that's still not fully liberating. That's not enough.
I see.
But in first jhana, with the Paticca Samuppada teaching, and begin to really understand how the mind works without having to dissect the thing.
Oh, I see.
That we can keep it in the sense that we know that there's a distinction between consciousness and perception, and that when I'm confused, I lump it together and begin to build a self as an idea or as a concept. But when I can set this down to the constituent component parts and understand that, I can come to the full realization without a shadow of a doubt. There is no self here.
I see.
And we can do that in first jhana. We do not have to get slugged with it in the fourth jhana. But again, it's only one of the first. It's only the first of 10 fetters.
Right. Exactly.
Because but guys who are off doing the fourth jhana are already taking care of the second fetter more anyway. To where us first jhana dudes will say it like that. We have to be able to discern with wisdom how intricately related this concept of self is with the rest of the world.
I see.
That brings on our greed and our ill will. So it's the ignorance of who we are in our relationship to the world that actually causes the greed and the ill will.
I see.
And so this is the cause of suffering. And so that second fetter then And the eradication of the second fetter means that now we can let go of the world and recognize that, hey, if I'm going to become liberated, it's going to happen right here, right now.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so the third fetter at that level then is the eradication of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we understand then. See, the fourth jhana dude, there was a lot of fourth jhana dudes in the time of the Buddha, and there's still possibly quite a few of them on the planet Earth even today.
Mm-hmm.
They can go into, we could also almost go so far as to say they're actually adept at, if not a master of, the fourth jhana.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, because they do not understand Paticca Samuppada,
Mm-hmm.
and do not understand the Four Noble Truths, and understand that their actual goal then is to live a life that is free from dukkha.
Mm-hmm.
They can only then live a life free from dukkha while they're sitting there in the fourth jhana. When they come out and go walking around, their original life comes back. And so in that regard, it's not liberating.
I see. Right.
So really what I'm coming down to now is then that sitting practice in and of and by itself is not liberating.
Right.
And it may not even be necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really valuable, really helpful. Just like the second jhana, the first jhana is even more so on that list.
I see.
But I would also go so far as generally the people who can see the Dhamma correctly without having a formal sitting practice means that they're capable of going into the the first jhana anyway, naturally. Right. And that in fact, the students, the first example of the first sotapan in the suttas was Buddha's actually his own teacher. His name is Kundana. And that he attained he attained sotapan in the sense that he could get, when the Buddha taught the middle path and the Four Noble Truths, he got it. He said, yeah, that's right. So where the rest of the four only got it after the fire sermon and some other things. Now, this is a story. We don't know any of this stuff. I think that all of this that I'm telling you now comes out of commentary.
I see.
But the point is that we can reach the state of sotapan without any formal practice at all.
Right.
But we still have to be able to get the mind fit for work so that we can see the Dhamma, we can see the teaching of the Buddha,
right,
and that we can see through personality, that we recognize that rebirth is, in one regard, magical thinking, and in the other regard, it's moment by moment, that when we see that we can, in fact, get angry, we're reborn in hell. That's a hell state. It's very uncomfortable.
Right.
Now that you've practiced and done that, even though you stopped your formal practice, still, when you got angry, you were saying that you knew it and you didn't like it, which meant that the residual of your good practice was still with you.
Yeah. So there's that.
And there's another example of that, and I have to really congratulate you, Willie, because last time that we talked a couple of sessions ago before you're sharing with Matt, right at the end of it, we got, when you asked the question, what more is there to do? We spent a short time with slow down, you move too fast. Okay. And I can see that you are not talking at New York minute speed today. That you have slowed down almost naturally just by mentioning it to you.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so I told you that I had noticed that I've been watching your speech, and that it has in fact slowed down, and that's good. That's good.
I see.
That when sati becomes natural, that means that it keeps occurring and recurring and recurring, so that you begin to catch yourself more and more with, am I talking too fast? Another one, by the way, that we can add with you is touching your face.
Oh, I
because
just
of
did, didn't I?
coronavirus.
I just did. I was scratching over here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you can add that to the list of don't touch your face. It's both hygienic and it's also mindfulness.
I see. Mm-hmm.
But many people will stop touching their face because of the coronavirus out of fear.
I see.
For you, we don't need fear as a motivation for sati.
Yeah. You can just. I just did. Gotcha. I see. Yeah.
So, watching what your hands are doing, keeping them away from the face, and also slowing down the speech. These are things that you can practice right throughout the day that really build up sati very well.
Yeah.
And
There's
that's, in
things.
fact, the real goal of the practice anyway, is to get your sati so high
Mm-hmm.
that your right view is so high
Mm-hmm.
that we live a naturally comfortable life all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm careful about that word all the time because most students will grab a hold of that and say, all right, now I've got to test. I got to do it every time, all the time.
100. And
They'll
then
feel
they turn
bad
it
when they miss.
right, but that's not possible. Like 100% of the time, that's not possible.
Not possible. But it is possible 100% of the time that I can wake up to the crap that I'm into right now and get out of it.
Right. Right.
That's always 100% possible. That if I can see what I'm doing, I can take control over it. If
Yeah.
I'm not awake, if there's no sati, then who knows what's going to happen.
I see. I see. Yeah, because there's definitely several little things that I've carried over from like the discussion from previous lessons. Several things like sati during a hot shower, or when you sit down, or when you stand up, pausing for a moment. Yeah, those have been pretty useful. Yeah, yeah. So I guess like my next question is, so most of the fun part here is actually the joy in remembering the practice, remembering to practice, and so for example, the first jhana is all about like the joy of remembering, because I remember an article that you had sent me saying that like actually satisfaction is what leads into the first jhana, and in fact that's the case because the tiny happy feelings that come when sitting become bigger happy feelings, and then bigger and bigger until the mind kind of just flips on a switch, and then bam, the first jhana will come like spontaneously. So then, like once in there, my understanding is, yeah, it's nice because you're kind of happy, right? But based on the discussions we had just several minutes before, which is when that happens, is there something to investigate when the mind is very bright like that, or when it's very focused? Is there something, or should I just like sit there and enjoy the ride, so to speak?
That's always worthwhile doing in and of itself.
Right.
But part of the enjoyment of the ride is continuous knowledge that this is it. And so we're still in that quality of investigation. We're still watching. Now, also the thing to watch for is what quality are your thoughts?
Oh.
Are you having wholesome thoughts, or are you having thoughts of the past or thoughts of the future? Are you having thoughts about what's happening right now?
So I would say the couple of times I remember, in the steeping into the first jhana is, there will be a period where the mind sinks and it's quiet, and then the thought will come that you realize, oh, this must be the first jhana, and then if not careful, that thought will be, oh, please stay focused here now, so we can stay like this, so that we can stay here. And then when that happens,
that's a good thought. That's wholesome.
It will fall apart if focusing like too heavily then the grasping comes, and then the entire thing will collapse. That's what I see. Yeah.
And one of the ways of collapsing is, wow, wait until I tell Dhammarato about this, our next call. That's losing it. That'll lose it. Why? Because now we're off into the future.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have an imaginary conversation. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say that, and I'm going to blah, 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 and all of a sudden we've lost it. It's gone now.
Right.
The thrill is gone because we started to talk too much about it, almost off into the future, rather than experience it and talking about it here in the present.
Right.
An example of in the present is, well, this actually is the third noble truth right now, because there is actually no suffering. And this is really nice, to be in a state of no suffering. Wow, I really like this. This is good stuff. Okay. And we can say, and I can review the sati.
Right.
And I can review the right effort. Right. And review the right attitude. Hot diggity dog, got some right attitude now. and so this is the way we practice it in the present moment, that we get to the through the Four Noble Truths. And out of that experience is that, wait a minute, this is all just experience.
Right.
This is all just mental process. There's no me in that process.
I see.
There's just mental processes going on. And well, this is really nice. I don't even need the world. This present moment is wonderful without the past and the future that is always attached with the world and other people and events and politics and all of that kind of stuff. So now I can be free from all of that.
Oh.
And that's at that level of boundless joy to find at last. There's no happiness in that world. So right now, out it goes.
So I guess that's probably... Sorry. It's not coronavirus, so it's just a couple of seasons.
Wait a minute, Chinaman. Get out of here.
Yes. Another way.
Well, it's only not coronavirus because you have not been tested.
Oh, yes, for sure. But that's another segue we can get into. Lately I looked at some statistics, just for fun, statistical theory, and I can branch into that after that. So it seems like basically what we've been discussing here, that my current understanding that why the first jhana is the one that leads to the path now is simply because of the joy of the first jhana, because with the joy of the first jhana and doing the things you just mentioned before, which is reinforcing, this is it, and satisfaction. It seems like it's basically supercharging the informal practice that we usually do to remember to be satisfied, because with the mini joys, you remember to be satisfied. But the value of the first jhana is that it has big joy, and big joy is much more effective at conditioning the mind than many tiny little joys. I mean they're useless. They're useful. Right?
One big joy versus one little joy, the big joy wins. But one big joy versus 20, 30, 40 little joys, now we've got competition.
Right, little joy?
Yeah, the little joys.
Joy is joy, big or small. So.
Right, exactly so. So I don't have the math. But I do know, and it also, when we say a big joy, how big is it? Can we do it on a scale from 1 to 10 and all of that? I don't think that it's necessary. What we can do instead is to recognize that, hey, joy will do. That's what the game is. That's what the goal is to get into a state of happiness in this present moment.
Right.
And then investigate it.
Right. Oh.
And as we are investigating this state of joy, we begin to better understand the constituent components of it, so that we can actually improve it. And so it's always about investigation. That's always the thing about that Sutta number 117 about the Great 40, where the Buddha says that right view comes first. Then he talks about wrong view, ordinary right view, and supramundane right view, where this supramundane right view is always back to investigate, to look, to note, to see what's going on.
So now I'm curious, when we say investigate the joy, what do we mean exactly? Because my understanding is when we investigate the joy, there's a couple things. One thing is, enjoy it because it's great. And the second thing is to see, like even the simplest things right now here, that's great. Like hot shower, great. Sip of water, great. Cushion on your butt, great. Like warm blanket, fantastic. Like that's my understanding. Now I'm beginning
breathing, though, that you didn't mention breathing, and I would have put that as the first one.
Sure.
Is to enjoy that breath, to really, it feels good to top it off.
Yeah.
And then it gets very light, right at the top of the breath. It gets very, very light.
Oh, yeah.
And then we just,
yeah. Gotcha.
And so finding joy in the body through the breathing.
I see.
Begin to really enjoy that and to experience where in the body is the joy.
Right. I see. That's really what we mean. I see.
And we can do it with the tingling that we have with lots of oxygen. That there's a lot of joy in that tingling.
Right.
Wow, it feels so good.
The shiver, yeah. That's happened a couple times.
And so there's these many places that we can experience and investigate and keep looking at all of the things that are happening. And I guess this is the purpose of doing this is when people begin to get insight. In that regard, I would say it's not one insight, it's a whole bunch, and that they build together, they build up. It's sort of like building a bridge. There's a lot of constituent components to the bridge, but once you get the bridge built, now you can cross traffic. That's the big insight. Right. But it takes all of these little building materials of insight about where is the joy, how to get it, and all of that kind of stuff. Right. And also the joy of the recognition that this Buddha's path of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path and the associated stuff of the Paticca Samuppada really does work.
It works. No,
I've got a winner now.
For sure. It works. It works. It definitely works.
There's joy in that. Hot diggity dog. We got the method now. We got the path.
The secret sauce.
And so we see it like that. In that regard, now, this is also part of the eradication, if not it, the eradication for the third better, the eradication of doubt.
Right.
Because now we're completely sure that no puja or donations or any of that kind of stuff in and of itself is going to give me a better life, next life. That I've got whatever I'm going to do spiritually, I've got to do it here, and I better do it now, because if not now, when? So that's the first part of the doubt, is whose fault is this anyway? Is it the karma machine? Is Jesus' fault? How about God? Did God do it?
God's plan?
Yeah, this is God's plan, that I sit here and suffer my miserable little life, and he won't even answer my prayers. What a disgusting situation. Okay, so that's the first doubt, that we gotta do it on our own. The second doubt is, am I up to the task? Can I do this?
For sure.
This is actually then the first step of the noble path. Is when we know for sure that no matter how obstructed the mind gets, we can clean it out. All we have to do is remember that we can clean it out, and then here we go. We've got this little practice going, and sure enough, we can clean it out, and we can come back to a state of joy, come back to a state of truth. Be here now, no matter how obstructed the mind is, including when we're sick.
Exactly. I see.
So this is the second doubt, but now we put together this third issue about, we know that we've got the Dhamma, and that the Dhamma itself is what's going to work. That's then the eradication of the third doubt, when we have knowledge and vision of what is and is not the path. That's a significant point. Knowledge and vision that this is the path. not the path of the Buddha, but the path for me. Because I'm the one who's going to have to tread this path, and I've got the skills to do it. Right. And so that's a major point in the awakening.
For sure. Yes, exactly.
After that, we become more and more dedicated that I got to practice this as much as I can, as often as I can.
I see.
And so as we're going through there, we've gone from the first knowledge to this. Actually, the second knowledge is beginning to get first jhana. And then the third knowledge is knowledge and vision of what is and is not the path. The fourth knowledge is being willing to be honest and truthful with ourselves about our own wrongdoing. Because the way that we have been taught through our society is don't get caught.
Right. Exactly.
Don't get caught. It's okay to mess up, just don't get caught. Well, we're going to throw that, or we're going to turn it around. And that is that I'm behaving correctly, then there's nothing to get caught. And if there's any catching to do, I'm going to do it first.
Right.
I'm going to recognize
that's really useful.
And so this is the fourth knowledge, is knowledge and a willingness to admit when we've done wrong. To be able to prove. In fact, that really helps us, in our Dhamma practice, because many people are reluctant to the Dhamma. Right. Because it sounds really strange and whatnot. But now we're saying, oh no, I'm really actually willing to see now my own delusions. I'm willing to be wrong.
Oh yeah, I've seen it happen. So actually, a week ago, my brother and I, we were chatting over dinner, and basically we one of his friends, was talking about, say, med school interviews, and a part of the behavioral portion is they ask you ethics questions. For example, say that you're a doctor and you have a patient, and for example, that there's nothing really wrong with the patient. You've done, all the tests, and they keep asking you, for, give me some meds or something. There's got to be something. And the question is, do you recommend them some holistic medicine? Say, you tell them, drink ginger water with this and this root, mixed in, and it will help your condition. And I saw, basically, and of course, we both took a side. And basically the gist is that, okay, hold on, I was right about to to touch my face, but anyway, so I was right about to, and so basically, we were talking, and then I was like, if I said, if it helps them, then I think that it was okay to just tell them something that was convenient. And then basically, we were talking about, well, what if, they actually have some other conditions, and then you're saying that it's fine. And when the debate went on, I basically, found myself, my brother made a good point, which was, you don't know that the patient is completely safe, because, the medical tests aren't exhaustive. And at that point, I actually saw myself not willing to concede that point to say that he was correct. And I wanted to hold on. I was like, no, that's not the case. And after 10, 15 seconds, I was like, okay, pause. And then he was like, did you just change your argument? And then I said, yes, because I agree with what you were saying. And I was like, oh yeah, and I saw it in action. It was basically, it's not even about getting caught. You just it's the side. We've been trained to say, like, you don't kind of want to admit that you're wrong. So,
isn't that interesting? And yet, when you did, I imagine that gave him a bit of joy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you could have shared that with him too, and both of you could have had a good laugh that he won that one.
Yeah, for sure. It was, and so there's definitely bits and pieces of it here and there. Yeah, definitely. There is ample room for practice there. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so being willing to admit that we're wrong, and keeping open and listening to what other people are saying is the best way to live. Because if we cling to what we used to believe, even though it's wrong because we won't listen to someone, then we're doomed to cause some sort of problem with that.
I see.
And so being open and listening to other people is really valuable.
I see.
And that is actually, the Buddha knew that so well that he put it as the fourth knowledge. And this knowledge is, by the way, also in that list of noble, super mundane, a factor of the path, and not shared by ordinary people. Ordinary people want to protect their views, but nobles are willing to let go of their views.
Right.
And so this dedication then to the path, and dedicating to being willing to open up and admit when we're wrong about something,
right,
leads eventually to the position of us being enthusiastic.
Oh, what happened? Something. I heard something. Yeah, I did.
Yes, you're back.
Oh yeah.
And so the last word was enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic.
Become enthusiastic or eager for the Dhamma.
I see. Gotcha.
This is when we become. I'm looking for the right word. Maybe we can come up with it. For sure, the word devotion is not correct. Because when we're devoted to, we're devoted to something like a personality. So it's not devotion. It's
dedication, maybe?
Determination is the word that Goenka uses, which is probably a fairly good word.
It's a fairly good word.
Determination, or it's like confidence, but it's more than confidence because it's got energy behind it now. It's got enthusiasm built into it. And so this is the sixth knowledge on the list, and then the seventh knowledge on the list is the big kahuna. And that is delight, that we actually become delighted in the Dhamma.
I see.
But that delight does not come without the eagerness, and that eagerness does not come without dedication to the path or to the determination. And that determination doesn't come until we get the willingness to be wrong.
I see. Right.
That willingness to be wrong doesn't happen until we really understand the path and have knowledge and vision of what the path is and what it is not, without a doubt.
Right. Because
that's followed by having a mind that's fit for work in first jhana.
Right. Exactly.
And that's followed by the knowledge of, I can do this, no matter how affected the mind gets. So now I've given them to you in reverse order.
Gotcha.
And this is the step to Sotapan. And I congratulate you, Willie, because you're right on the path.
Woo!
You're doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah, so we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much been the fun stuff. Yeah, so I guess this week will probably be better, because of the whole.
You'll have time to do nothing for a while.
Oh yes, that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that.
Even if you stay dedicated to the work as much as you would, you still have an hour and a half extra a day for just travel time.
For sure, exactly. And so I'm really hoping to, just like really give the mind the rest it deserves, honestly. Give it some rest, let it chill, chill and sit there for a bit. That would be good. Yeah. So I think at this point, maybe we could turn off the video and let me see if the Zen Master is here, because he probably doesn't like being recorded. But I want to see if he is there, and I can probably walk outside and see if he can say hi.
Right. Well, let's do that. We'll just say ta-ta for now, and we'll talk to you later.
Yes. Got it. See you guys later. Yeah. See the audience later. So.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just leave it.